Hey guys, this is John from the Strategy Sphere Network. I'm here today to talk about some arguments that have been made by some of the people in the political sphere regarding economics. My thesis, and what I'm going to kind of show you guys with the analysis I've run here in Excel, is that they haven't actually looked at pretty much any of the data when they make these arguments. Now, aside from political or people in the political sphere, there are also these neo business gurus that say things such as don't get an education. I did gather some data on this as well to kind of discuss the merits of that. So looking at the Excel file I have here, so first thing to talk about is just the raw data I have. Okay, so to just go over the raw data I have here in Excel, it does show some of these sources that I have here in the top. So we take it from places like Investopedia, World Bank, mostly government organizations like census.gov and the Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Protection. Now, the only thing taken from Investopedia, just for convenience, essentially was the unemployment rate, which, some of you can verify very easily in other places. So I don't really expect Investopedia to get something like this wrong. And then all the other sources are, government. So these should all be pretty good in terms of data collection processes and data validation. So now discussing the actual analysis itself, this is pretty basic stuff that I've done here. Basically, I'm just running a bunch of correlations across these variables I have here, which you can see here. Now, the only one maybe that needs to be explained here is the Gini coefficient. So what the Gini coefficient is basically a number between 0 and 1 that describes the degree of wealth inequality. These are all taken from the US, by the way. So higher Gini coefficients, say like a Gini coefficient of 1 describes perfect wealth inequality, where a single individual has all of the wealth. And 0 describes perfect wealth equality, so everyone has the same amount. And then maybe the other thing to talk about too is max SSI, so that's Social Security income monthly payments. And you see the units right here. Now, if we go down, you will notice some discrepancies in the time horizons. So not all of the data I could collect back to 1929, for example. The only one we have here that's at 1929 is unemployment rate. So what I did is I broke these up into smaller time horizons, about 50 years, 25 years, and 10 years, to look at the correlations as they change over time. Now at the end, I do have the 10 and 25-year slopes, or the rate of change. So a couple notable things I have here highlighted. You can see that the unemployment rate has been going down both over 25 and a 10-year horizon. The unemployment rate has been going down faster, though, in the last 10 years. And again, this is in the US. The other thing is that the Gini coefficient has a positive rate of change. You can also see, and this aligns with the data that was presented as well in the CFA Level 3 curriculum, the Gini coefficient is going up, and it's going up at a higher rate over a 10-year horizon than a 25-year horizon, although these do still look like pretty small numbers. Over a 20-year period, for example, this is going to look like 0.06, however. So just keep that in mind. And currently, with the Gini coefficient being close to 0.5, that is starting to dip into maybe where we would say that the Gini coefficient is becoming higher, that we have a high degree of wealth inequality in the United States. Now, notably, because, the other argument we're going to be dealing with today is, I won't say who presented this, because it might feel pretty grilled after I've presented this analysis. But basically, their position is that the reason that single-parent households have been increasing, so to speak, in the US is due to social transfer payments, so things like welfare. As you can see, I think this is a little bit painful to say, but the single-parent households, the rate of change is, number one, it's negative. It's decreasing over time. And that's over a 25 and a 10-year horizon. And it's also decreasing faster over a 10-year horizon. So that's number one. And we're also going to talk about how just basically the correlation between those things just doesn't make sense. Now, they do have some other slopes you can look at in here on the video if you'd like, but I'm not going to be talking about them. Okay, now the actual correlation data that I have here, this is all, again, this is pretty basic. We could extend the analysis. Some of this actually would require extended analysis to really identify what's going on in some of these respects, but most of this is pretty straightforward. So I do have these abbreviated. So here we have the correlations for unemployment rate and these social transfer payments. We can see number one is that if the argument was true that social transfer payments made people lazy and therefore, incentivize them to not have a job, then we should see there some positive correlation between the unemployment rate and social transfer payments, right? If social transfer payments increase, we should see the unemployment rate go up. Well, you can see here that it's a negative correlation, a weak negative correlation, mind you, across the 50, 25, and 10-year time horizons. And again, this is broadly across the US. Doesn't really make sense in this respect. Down here we have the GDP per capita and social transfer payments. You can see that these are pretty strongly related, which makes sense. Now, there's a couple things probably going on here. One kind of obvious explanation is that as GDP increases, we have a larger pool of capital to draw social transfer payments from. But the other thing that a lot of people don't know is that social transfer payments are also used as capital injections into the economy to increase the demand for goods and therefore also boost the GDP. So that's probably why we see these correlations fairly close to one. We do have the GDP growth rate and the GDP per capita. We see that these are actually interestingly displaced. So it's unclear why this is going on or why they're basically weak correlations. I think we should see that, if the GDP growth rate is going up, the GDP per capita is going up. So there might be an issue with the data in this respect, but I didn't screen for that. So just keep that in mind. Social transfer payments and single parent households. So you can also see here, so in addition to the single parent household, percentage going down year over year. You can also see that social transfer payments, although they had a weak, maybe a moderate correlation 50 years ago, they definitely in the last 25 years, in the last 10 years, it's had a negative correlation with single parent households. So in other words, for one reason or another, increase in social transfer payments are not resulting in increases. They're actually correlated with decreases in single parent households. Now, so you can go through all of these correlations we have here. The main points really are that the data we have here on household income and single parent households suggests that it's probably an effect of household income. So if household income goes down, then single parent households go up. So it might suggest that it's an effect of poverty. Now, also interestingly, the Gini coefficient is negatively related in the last 25 and 10 years, 10 years more strongly in the US with single parent households. So basically what this suggests, and although you could run additional analysis on this, but I think this is definitely sufficient to disprove with the data that we have here, that the argument that social transfer payments promote people to be lazier just doesn't work. But surprisingly, in my opinion, the single parent household rate isn't associated with wealth inequality, or at least based on the data that I have here. Now, I do have one other chart here showing basically the most important thing is that welfare only. So amongst household types that do collect welfare, you can basically see that most of the households collect welfare and also work, not just collect welfare. And within the single parent category, only a small proportion, about 17%, collect welfare only. And really less than half of them collect welfare in the first place. So this would also, it would suggest that, again, most of the people who collect welfare are also working. And it gets, there's a higher distinction in the other categories, like for married parents, for example, and really across all households. and also that single parent households rely primarily on welfare. So we're just going to point that out as well. And again, you can take a look at some of the other data I have here if you like. Now, I also collected, this was more of a residual afterthought analysis, to be honest, income data related to level of education. So we do see in my video criticizing Robert Kiyosaki's book, for example, he really bashes education. For some reason or another, some people have vouched against education more recently. Basically what I have here and what this data essentially shows, I break this down into one, the total percentage of all participants in the survey that have this level of education. So that's under total representation. You can see that in the total 25 years and over, we have 100% in the top bracket. That's just to show that this does work as a formula. We collect the largest bracket in that category. So you can see that across all participants, about 15% of them make 200,000 and over. And then the percentage of that group as well. Like the percentage of people in the largest bracket within that group. So that'll make more sense as we go down. Here at the top bracket, it looks the same because we just take the largest bracket and see how that looks in the largest bracket. And then also the percentage of people in that group are earning more than 100,000 a year. So basically, and this is pretty clear, we have data on people with less than 9th grade, 9th to 12th grade, and a high school diploma. You can pretty much see that these all occupy the largest group in these education groups are 10,000 to about 25,000 a year. And now, mind you, these are small percentages of the total group, around 5%. In the 9th grade or less than 9th grade, you have about 10% of people making 10 to 15,000 a year. But these are the largest groups. Now, the other point is that you also see that the percentage of people earning more than 100,000 a year in these groups is around 10 to 20%, give or take. Now, what I want to show is that even with some college, so I mean any sort of degree, so these are associate degrees, and college, some college not completing a degree, you see that the top bracket immediately jumps up to 200,000. This is the same for all of these educated brackets, which means that the largest of these income groups, the largest percentage of all the groups jump from 20,000 to 25,000 a year up to $200,000 and over. And that's not even finishing the college degree. So number one. And then number two is that the percentage of people earning more than 100,000 a year also jumps up by about 10%. Now, this alone doesn't necessarily suggest that you can have about the same outcomes without finishing a degree, because as I'm going to mention here as well, the magnitude of these percentages is also different. So here, without finishing a degree, you have about 1% of people earning 200,000 and over, whereas having any degree that's a bachelor's degree or more, it jumps up to 11% earning more than 200,000, and the percentage of people earning more than 100,000 is more than half. 62%. And so then, it breaks it down further by what kind of bachelor's, master's, professional degree, or doctorate degree. But you see pretty clearly that this shows strongly that people do make more money with education. So the main point of this is that all of these people have made these arguments, haven't really looked at any data. And I think that with these being the most obvious of analyses you could run, it's somewhat shocking. Anyway, so I hope that commentary was insightful. If you have any questions, you can leave them in the comments. I'll try to get to them. And if there's anything else you want me to address in the future, I'll try to get to that as well. Have a great... We're going to cut that. I'm going to change this. See ya. Bye. I don't have a good outro.